The alien ships came to Earth without any warning. One normal Tuesday morning, the sky suddenly filled with enormous vessels that blocked the sun. People everywhere stopped and stared as darkness fell in the middle of the day. Tay stood on the roof of her apartment building in Seoul, watching the massive ships hover above the city. She felt small and afraid but tried not to show it. As her neighbors gathered around her, they all looked to her because she used to be in the military and people trusted her in scary situations. For 5 days, the ships just stayed there, not moving, not doing anything. People began to wonder if they would ever make contact. World leaders tried sending messages but got no answer. Some people started to panic. Others said the aliens must be peaceful because they had not attacked yet. On the 6th day, all screens on Earth, televisions, phones, computers suddenly showed the same message. "We are the core Imperial fleet. Your planet belongs to us now. Do not resist." The voice was flat and cold. The alien speaking looked almost human but with pale skin, 6 fingers on each hand and eyes that glowed silver like metal. Tay did not trust these aliens. She had been in too many conflicts to believe that anyone who arrives with weapons means peace. She called her sister Han right away to make sure she was safe. Han worked as a doctor at the city hospital and told Tay the emergency room was full of people who had hurt themselves. Panicking, the Korra ships landed. In every major city on Earth, they sent out soldiers who looked just like the one on the message, tall, pale, 6-fingered with those strange silver eyes. They did not attack people, but they took over government buildings and military bases. No human weapons seemed to work against them. Many humans fought back at first, but their guns and bombs did nothing against the Korra shields. After a few days of failed attacks, most people stopped fighting. The aliens announced that humans could continue their normal lives as long as they obeyed Korra rules and gave them what they wanted. What they wanted seemed simple at first: water, minerals, certain plants, nothing that would destroy Earth completely. Most world leaders advised cooperation, they said. Fighting would only get more people killed. Tay did not like it, but even she had to admit that surrender seemed like the only option that made sense. Tay got a new job working security at meetings between human leaders and the Korra she did not trust, the aliens, but she wanted to learn more about them. She noticed they never showed emotions, they never smiled or got angry or seemed happy or sad. They just stated facts and gave orders. One day, while guarding a meeting room door, Tay overheard something that made her blood feel like ice. The Korra were talking among themselves, not knowing she could hear them. "Humans are responding well to the compliance testing." One said, "The psychological breaking point experiments will begin next phase." Another replied, "These creatures are similar to the ones from the NEV system. We should get good data." Tay realized with horror that the Korra saw humans as test subjects, not as people worthy of respect. She wanted to run into the room and confront them, but she knew that would only get her killed instead. She recorded their words on her phone and sent the recording to Han and some friends she trusted. 3 months after the Korra arrived, they made an announcement that surprised everyone. They wanted human women to become cultural ambassadors. They said these women would learn Korra ways and help humans understand their new rulers better. They requested doctors, teachers, mothers, young women, old women, thousands of them from every major city. Han's hospital selected her to go. She was excited, thinking this might be a chance for real communication between species. Tay begged her not to go. She shared the recording and her fears. But Han said if the Korra were planning something bad, she wanted brave people on the inside who could report back. She hugged Tay and promised to send secret messages if she saw anything wrong. All across Earth, women said goodbye to their families and went to the Korra ships they were told to pack for a 2-week training program. Many went, hopefully believing this might be the start of better relations between humans and aliens. Tay watched the news showing lines of women entering the massive ships, her stomach tight with worry. 1 day passed, then 2, then a week. No messages came from inside the ships. Families began to ask questions, but Korra officials just said training was intensive and communication would be allowed soon. 2 weeks passed and still no word. Governments began to demand answers. Finally, after 3 weeks, the Korra governor for East Asia called a press conference. Tay watched on television as the tall alien stood before human reporters, its silver eyes showing no emotion at all. "The women have served their purpose," the governor said. In that flat voice, "Their biological material has been processed. They are no longer functional." The room exploded with questions, but Tay could not hear them over the roaring in her ears. Biological material processed her sister Han was not coming. Home, none of the women were coming home. The Korra had killed them all, not in battle, not in self-defense, but in cold blood as test subjects. Reports came in from around the world, all saying the same thing. Thousands of women gone all at once. Mothers, daughters, sisters, friends, all dead. The Korra seemed confused by the human outrage when pressed for explanation. Their governor simply said the research was necessary and efficient resources must not be wasted. That night, Tay sat alone in her apartment, looking at a photo of her and Han taken last summer. They were laughing at a beach party. Han had always been the kind one, the one who believed people were good. Deep down, Tay wondered what her sister thought in her final moments when she realized the Korra had no goodness in them at all. Something cold and hard formed in Tay's chest. It was not just sadness. It was not just anger. It was something new. Something that would never go away. The Korra had made a terrible mistake. They thought killing human women would frighten other humans into becoming more obedient instead. It united humans in a way nothing else could have done. Tears fell onto the photo as Tay's phone buzzed with a message from a number she did not know. It said only the resistance. Meets tonight, bring weapons. Tay wiped her eyes and stood up. The Korra thought they understood humans. They thought they knew what humans would do when threatened, but they were wrong. Humans were not just test subjects. Humans were dangerous, especially when protecting those they loved. The Korra had killed the wrong women. They had awakened something they could not understand. Tay put on her old military jacket and checked the hidden gun she kept for emergencies as she left her apartment. She looked once more at Han's photo. The Korra wanted data on human breaking points. They were about to learn that some things, when broken, become weapons. 3 weeks after the Korra killed thousands of women, Earth was changing. The aliens expected humans to become more afraid. Instead, they became more angry. Tay found herself in the middle of this anger, now part of a growing resistance movement. The first meeting Tay attended was in an old basement under a closed restaurant. 20 people gathered there in darkness. They came from all walks of life. A teacher, a bus driver, a college student, all united by loss, all ready to fight. Some had military training like Tay. Others had never held a weapon, but they all shared the same cold determination in their eyes. A man named Jun ran the meeting. He was tall and thin with glasses that kept sliding down his nose before the invasion. He had been a software engineer, now he was a resistance leader. His wife had been among the women taken by the Korra. Jun spoke in a calm, quiet voice that somehow made his words more powerful. "We cannot match their technology," Jun said, "but we can be smarter. We can be more determined. We can make them regret ever coming to our planet." He pulled out a device that looked like a mix between a phone and a small computer. "This is Korra tech. We stole it last week." "I'm learning how they communicate." Tay was impressed. Jun had already been taking action while others were still in shock. Each person in the room introduced themselves and stated what skills they could offer. Tay told them about her military background and her job as security at Korra meetings. They immediately asked her to train others in combat and to gather information. Over the next 2 weeks, Tai's group grew from 20 to 30 members. They moved their base to an abandoned mining complex in the mountains outside Seoul. The tunnels provided natural protection and hiding places. They set up sleeping quarters, a medical area, and a workshop where Jun spent most of his time studying Korra devices. Jun made an exciting discovery one night. He burst into the main cavern where people were eating dinner, his eyes wide with excitement. "I figured it out," he said. Waving a small device, their main communication system is unhackable. It uses quantum entanglement, but their local networks, the ones they use inside their bases, are similar to our Wi-Fi. This was huge news. If they could hack into Korra local networks, they could gather intelligence, disrupt communications, and maybe even sabotage equipment. Tai immediately called the leadership together to plan their first major operation. Satellite images showed a Korra facility on the outskirts of Seoul. It was smaller than their main base, but intelligence suggested it was important. Jun identified it as a processing center where the aliens studied human genetic material. This was where they took samples from the murdered women. The thought made Tay's blood boil. This would be their target, not just for strategic reasons, but for revenge. The resistance needed a victory. They needed to show both humans and Korra that Earth would not be taken without A fight Tay spent days training her strike team. They practiced in the woods using paintball guns to simulate combat. A woman named Dal, who had been a professional athlete before the invasion, proved especially skilled. She moved silently and shot. With deadly accuracy, Tay put her in charge of a second team. Jun and his tech people created devices that could temporarily disable Korra security systems. They only had enough parts to make 3 devices, and they would only work for about 7 minutes each. They had to time their attack perfectly. The night before the mission, Tay could not sleep. She lay on her thin mattress staring at the cave ceiling. Thinking of Han, would her sister approve of what she was about to do? Han had always been gentle, always looking for peaceful solutions. But the Korra had not given peace a chance. They had taken it off the table when they murdered thousands of innocents. "We attack at dawn," Tay told her team as they gathered in the pre-dawn darkness. 40 people armed with a mix of human weapons and a few stolen Korra devices. They had 3 trucks painted to look like delivery vehicles. The plan was simple. Jun would use his hacking device to blind the facility security. Then 3 teams would enter from different points. T would lead the main assault team. Their job was to destroy the laboratory and all research material. Dal would take her team through the east entrance, looking for any human prisoners who might still be alive, though they feared there would be none. A third team, led by a former demolitions expert, would plant explosives throughout the facility. Jun sat in one of the trucks, his fingers flying over his device. "Ready? All systems go," he said finally, his voice tight with tension. 3 trucks sped down the mountain road toward the Korra facility. They parked half a kilometer away and approached on foot. Jun activated his device and gave them the signal. "Security is down. You have 7 minutes. Go, go, go." Tay waved, her team forward, their hearts pounding. The facility had minimal guards. The Korra were so confident in their technology, they never expected anyone could bypass it. Tay and her team moved quickly through the halls, following the map Jun had created. From satellite images, they encountered 2 Korra soldiers and took them down with silent shots. The main laboratory was exactly where intelligence said it would be, a large white room filled with strange equipment and containers. Tay felt sick when she saw what was inside the containers: tissue samples, organs, blood, all labeled in both Korra language and English. One container caught her eye. It held a human brain, preserved in clear liquid. The label read "Specimen 1457. Han Tai nearly collapsed at the sight of her sister's name, but there was no time for grief. The mission came first. She had to keep moving. Her team placed explosives around the lab, photographed documents, and stole data drives, anything that might help them understand the enemy and plan future attacks. Dal radioed that her team had found no living prisoners, but had discovered a room full of records detailing the executions. They took what they could carry. 6 minutes after entering the facility, Tay's radio crackled, with Yun's urgent voice: "Security systems rebooting, get out. Now you have less than 60 seconds. Everyone moved quickly toward the exits, carrying their stolen intelligence. Tay was the last to leave, making sure all her people got out safely. As she ran down the final hallway, alarm lights began flashing. The Korra were regaining control. She sprinted toward the exit, heart hammering in her chest. All 3 teams made it to the trucks and sped away as the first Korra ships appeared in the sky above the facility. They drove to a pre-arranged viewing point 2 kilometers away and watched as the explosives detonated. The facility erupted in flames, the explosion lighting up the dawn sky. It was beautiful in a terrible way. Tay felt no joy, only a grim satisfaction. This was just the beginning. The Korra would learn that humans were not easy prey. What happened next surprised everyone. They expected the Korra to hunt them down to increase security at other facilities to make examples of human communities. Instead, the aliens simply abandoned the destroyed facility completely. It appeared that for all their advanced technology, the Korra had no experience with guerrilla warfare. "They don't understand why we fight," Dal said as they drove back to their mountain base. "They thought killing would make us surrender. They don't understand that it only made us dangerous." News of the successful attack spread quickly across human communities. Other resistance cells began to form around the world. Attacking Korra targets, humans everywhere realized they were not helpless. The Korra governor appeared on television, his silver eyes showing no emotion. "These terrorists will be hunted down and processed. Human defiance is irrational and will be met." With increased security measures, he said, but his words rang hollow. The Korra had already shown their worst and humans were no longer afraid. That night, Tay looked at the data they had stolen. Jun was already analyzing it, looking for weaknesses they could exploit in future attacks for the first time since the invasion. Tay felt something like hope the road ahead would be long and bloody. But humans had something the Korra could never understand. A reason to fight that was stronger than fear of death as she fell asleep. Tay remembered the container with her sister's name. She would make the Korra pay for every life they had taken. The war had only just begun. 6 months after the Korra invaded Earth, everything had changed. Tay no longer led just one small resistance cell. She now commanded an entire network of fighters across Asia. The resistance had grown from scattered angry people into an organized force in the mountain base that served as their headquarters. Tay stood before a large map showing Korra installations across the continent. Red pins marked destroyed facilities. Green pins showed active targets. The map had more red pins every week. It gave her a fierce satisfaction to see their progress. What began as our greatest weakness has become our greatest strength, Jun said as he joined her at the map. He looked different now, thinner, harder. His eyes always tired behind his glasses, but his mind remained sharp, constantly finding new ways to fight. The Korra Tay looked at him curiously. "What do you mean, our greatest weakness?" she asked. June pointed to a captured Korra device sitting on the table next to them. They rely completely on their technology, he explained. When that technology fails, they have no backup plan. No manual systems, nothing. This discovery had transformed the resistance strategy. At first they tried to steal Korra weapons to fight back, but now they focused on disabling Korra technology instead by targeting power sources, communication networks, and security systems. They could make the aliens vulnerable. Even more important, the resistance had discovered something about Korra psychology that gave humans an unexpected advantage. The aliens had no concept of sacrifice during an attack on a Korra supply depot. Dal had stayed behind to ensure the others escaped. It was the first time they had lost someone from the original team. Tay had been devastated, but during the next raid they captured something valuable. A live Korra soldier. The alien was brought back to their mountain base, secured in a makeshift cell. June had developed a crude translation program to communicate with it. Tay had asked the alien, showing images of the executed women, including her sister Han. The translation came back efficient, quick data collection, not important creatures. The alien's voice was flat, emotionless. They were our sisters, our mothers, our daughters. Tay had said, struggling to keep her voice steady despite her rage. The translation of the alien's response chilled everyone in the room. All species lose members. Emotional attachment is inefficient. Jun studied the recording of this exchange for days, finally, reaching a conclusion that changed their entire approach. The Korra have no concept of sacrifice. He told the resistance leaders they evolved as apex predators. They never needed to risk themselves for others. This was why the aliens could not understand. Human strategy could not predict human actions when humans launched suicide missions or used diversionary tactics. The Korra were completely confused. They expected all beings to prioritize their own survival above everything else. The most important intelligence from the captured Korra revealed another critical weakness despite their technological advantages. The aliens were physically vulnerable to many of the same things that harmed humans. Their ships were heavily armored, but the beings themselves could be killed with conventional weapons if you could get past their shields. 6 months into the war, the resistance had developed effective tactics: strike quickly, disable technology, attack the exposed Korra, and withdraw before reinforcements arrived. Never engage in prolonged battles. Never try to hold territory, just hit and run. Tay walked through their expanded base, now home to over 200 fighters. What had started in a small cave system had grown into a sprawling underground complex. They had power systems, communications, workshops, medical facilities, even a small farm using special lights to grow food. In one of the workshops, a young woman named Sue worked quietly. She had joined them 3 months ago after escaping from a Korra labor camp. Sue had been a biology student before the invasion. Now she studied the few Korra bodies they had recovered, looking for more weaknesses. Sue waved Tay over excitedly. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a specimen under a microscope. Tay could see strange cellular structures unlike anything in human biology. This is their respiratory system. Sue explained they process oxygen differently than we do. This might be important. Tay knew she trusted Sue, who worked tirelessly, often sleeping. Only a few hours before returning to her research, we need to understand them better to defeat them, Tay said. Sue nodded, her eyes serious. I think him close to something big, she replied. Later that day, Jun called an emergency meeting. News had arrived from resistance cells around the world. Others had been making similar discoveries about Korra weaknesses and sharing them through their secure network. In North America, fighters had destroyed 17 major Korra installations in a single day. In Africa, resistance forces had captured and now controlled territory the size of Kenya. Most exciting, a cell in Europe had captured an entire Korra supply ship. The ship contained not just weapons, but data, vast amounts of information about Korra biology, technology, and even their homeworld. Jun projected images onto the wall of their meeting room. The Korra come from a planet with higher gravity, denser atmosphere, and much less biological diversity than Earth, June explained. This is why they struggle. Here they have no natural defenses against our environment. This matched what Sue had been discovering in her research. The Korra were physically strong but biologically fragile. Their bodies had evolved in a controlled, predictable environment. Earth, with its millions of species of bacteria, viruses, insects, and varying climate conditions, was hostile to them in ways they had not anticipated. For the first time, Tay allowed herself to believe they might actually win this war. The aliens had superior technology, yes, but they had fundamental weaknesses that humans could exploit. They did not understand sacrifice. They could not adapt quickly. They had no experience with defeat. Tay gathered her top commanders to develop new strategies based on this. Intelligence, we need to coordinate our attacks, she told them. Make them fight on multiple fronts, force them to spread their resources. Thin, the Korra thought in straight lines. They could not handle chaos or unpredictability. Meanwhile, Sue continued her research with renewed enthusiasm. The biology samples from the captured ship gave her more to work with than ever before. She barely left her lab for days, emerging finally with bloodshot eyes but a triumphant expression. I found something, she told Tay. The Korra have no natural immunity to Earth bacteria. They protect themselves with antibiotic fields generated by devices on their ships and bases. If we can disable those fields, they would be exposed to our microbial environment. The implications were enormous. Earth itself, its microscopic life forms, could become weapons more effective than any bomb or bullet. Tay immediately authorized teams to begin targeting the Korra environmental protection systems, while Sue developed delivery methods for particularly harmful but human-safe bacteria. That night, Tay found June working late as usual, analyzing Korra communication patterns. Do you think they regret coming here? She asked him. June looked up from his screens. I don't think they're capable of regret. He said they don't understand emotions the way we do. They understand success and failure, efficiency and inefficiency, but not regret. Jun paused, his hands hovering over his keyboard. But they're definitely capable of failure, he added with a small smile, and we're going to make sure they experience a lot of it. Tay nodded, looking at the map with its growing number of red pins. The Korra had come to Earth, expecting an easy conquest. They had killed thousands of women, including her sister, Han, thinking it would make humans easier to control. Instead, they had created millions of determined enemies who would never give up. The resistance was no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for justice, for the memory of those who had been treated as mere specimens by the Korra. And in that fight, humans had advantages the aliens could never understand. Determination, sacrifice, love, and now, knowledge of the enemy's greatest weakness. Sue appeared at the door of the communications room, her face glowing with excitement. I need volunteers, she said, her voice urgent. I think I can make a weapon that targets their respiratory system. If it works, we could disable entire Korra bases without firing a single shot. Looking at Sue's eager face and Jun's tired but determined eyes, Tay felt something she had not experienced since before the invasion. Hope, not just for survival but for victory. The Korra had made one fatal mistake. They had judged humanity by their own standards, and they were about to learn just how wrong they had been. 18 months after the Korra invasion began, Humanity prepared for its most daring operation. The mothership attack the resistance had grown strong, fighting back against the alien forces and pushing them off Earth. Now they aimed for the heart of the enemy. The massive command ship that controlled the entire Korra fleet, in the main war room deep inside the mountain base. Tai stood before 200 resistance leaders from around the world. The room was packed with battle-hardened fighters. Scientists, engineers, and strategists all focused on the holographic display, showing the Korra mothership orbiting Earth. According to intelligence we gathered from captured Korra vessels, the mothership houses their high command and coordinates all. Invasion forces, Tai explained. If we can destroy it, the remaining Korra will be cut off and vulnerable. We can end this war once and for all. The question was how to reach the mothership. Conventional rockets would be detected and destroyed long before. Reaching orbit, the resistance had captured several smaller Korra vessels, but none capable of traveling through space. A direct assault seemed impossible. Jun stepped forward, his thin face serious, but his eyes bright with possibility. I think I have a solution, he said. We don't need to reach orbit conventionally. He pointed to a section of the hologram showing the interior layout of the mothership. The Korra use quantum teleportation to move between their ships. He explained if we can capture an intact teleportation chamber and decrypt their targeting systems, we can send a team directly to the mothership. The room erupted in discussion, some leaders excited, others skeptical. Teleportation was the most advanced Korra technology they had encountered, far beyond human understanding. Jun admitted the risks were enormous. A slight error in targeting could send the team into space or materialize them inside a solid wall, but it was their only chance. Tai listened to all arguments before making her decision. We will proceed with this plan. She said it is risky, yes, but not as risky as allowing the Korra to regroup and resume their invasion. Jun will lead the technical team preparing the teleporter. We need a strike force. Tai continued looking. Around the room, our best fighters, most adaptable, most determined. The mothership will be heavily defended, and unlike our previous missions, there will be no quick escape. I will lead this mission myself. Tai stated when others objected. Generals belonged. At command centers, not on the front lines, she simply said, I started this fight for my sister Han. I need to see it through. She had earned enough respect that no one argued further. A strike team of 50 was assembled over the next week, the best. Fighters from resistance cells worldwide. Among them was Dal, who had been with Tai since the beginning, and Su, whose biological weapons had turned the tide of the war. Su insisted on joining, despite having no combat experience. We don't know what well. Find aboard their command ship. Su argued I need to be there to identify biological threats or opportunities. Her knowledge might prove crucial for the final mission. Meanwhile, smaller teams embarked on a crucial preliminary mission capturing an intact Korra teleportation chamber. 3 attempts failed with heavy casualties before a 4th team in Mongolia successfully secured a facility with minimal damage to the critical equipment. Jun and his engineers worked day and night to understand the alien technology. The Korra used principles of quantum physics that humans had only theorized about before the invasion. It took 2 weeks of non-stop work before Jun felt confident they could control the teleporter. The device was moved to the Mongolian facility where the strike team assembled. It would be a one-way trip. They could teleport to the mothership, but would need to find another way back, possibly capturing escape pods or smaller craft within the alien vessel. The plan required perfect coordination. While Tai and her team attempted their boarding action, resistance forces worldwide would launch simultaneous attacks on every remaining Korra ground installation, preventing the aliens from responding to the threat to their command ship. On the night before the mission, Tai could not sleep. She walked through the quiet base thinking of all that had happened since the invasion began, the sister she had lost, the friends who had died, the world that had changed forever. She wondered if Han would be proud of what she had become, a leader, a fighter. A killer morning came too quickly. The strike team gathered in the teleportation chamber, checking weapons and equipment. One last time, Tai looked at the faces around her. Dal, calm and confident. Su, nervous but determined, and dozens of others from different countries speaking different languages, all united in their mission. It is time, Jun said, his voice solemn as he activated the teleporter. The chamber hummed with energy. Glowing symbols appeared on alien control panels. The air itself seemed to vibrate. Tay felt a strange sensation, like being pulled in all directions at once. Then nothingness. When awareness returned, Tay found herself in a vast metallic corridor aboard the mothership. The strike team materializing around her, they had arrived safely, all 50 of them, their weapons ready. This was no drill. This was the real mission. The final battle. The resistance had expected heavy defenses, but what they found instead was chaos. The Korra High Command had never anticipated a direct assault on their sanctum. Their security protocols were designed to prevent external attacks, not an enemy materializing in their midst, using captured schematics. The strike team moved quickly through the enormous ship heading for the control center. They encountered groups of confused Korra soldiers, who clearly had no experience with boarding actions. The aliens were used to fighting from a distance with advanced weapons, not in close quarters. Tay led from the front, her weapon claiming the first alien life. Her team formed a tight formation, moving steadily forward. Sue close behind, scanning for biological hazards. Dal covering their flanks. Despite their preparation, the team took casualties. The Korra weapons still deadly even in their panic. In a narrow corridor leading to the ship's central section, a group of Korra elite guards ambushed them, firing strange weapons that seemed to distort space itself. 3 resistance. Fighters fell instantly, their bodies twisted in impossible ways. Dal pushed Tay down, saving her from a direct hit, then took a glancing blow herself. No, Dal screamed in pain as the weapon effect spread through her body, twisting and warping. Tay tried to reach her friend, but more Korra were coming. There was no time. Dal looked up, met Taya's eyes and nodded. "Go," she whispered. "Finish it." Tai had no time to mourn. The mission came first. She would grieve for her friend later. If there was a later, the remaining team pushed forward toward the control center, the heart of the Korra invasion force. The control center was a vast chamber dominated by a holographic display of Earth around it. Dozens of high-ranking Korra worked at control stations they turned in. Shock as the humans burst in weapons raised the Korra. Supreme Commander, distinguished by its ornate armor, stepped forward. "This is unprecedented," it said through a translation device, the silver eyes widening. "No species has ever penetrated a command ship." "Then you've never faced humans before?" Tay replied, raising her weapon. The fighting was brief but intense when it ended. The control center was in human hands, but only 27 of the original 50 strike team members remained. Sue immediately began working with Jun via radio to access the ship systems. "We can't just destroy it," Sue explained. "This ship controls their entire fleet. If we destroy it, their ships will default to autonomous mode and likely attack Earth indiscriminately. Instead, they formulated a new plan. Using the command systems, they would issue orders to the entire Korra fleet. Full retreat. The ships would be programmed to return to Korra space. Then, once the fleet was safely away from Earth, the command ship's power core would overload, destroying it and preventing the Korra from sending another invasion force. As the mothership began transmitting the retreat orders, Tai accessed the ship's database. She needed to know why the Korra had chosen Earth, why they had executed those women so callously. The answer was both simple and horrifying. Earth had been selected because humans showed emotional responses similar to the Korra's own long-extinct prey species. The executions had been an experiment to confirm that similarity to the Korra. It was no different than humans studying rats in a laboratory. Tay felt a cold satisfaction as she watched the Korra fleet begin its retreat on screens throughout the control center. Ships were breaking orbit, forming up for their long journey home. They were leaving not by choice but by defeat, forced back by the determination and ingenuity of the species they had underestimated. She thought of Han and of all the others who had died. They had been seen as specimens by the Korra, but their deaths had awakened humanity's greatest strength, the ability to unite against a common enemy, to fight not just for survival, but for each other. Sue approached her, smiling through exhaustion. "The escape pods are ready," she said. "We need to leave soon before the power core overload begins." They had set the ship systems to self-destruct once the last Korra vessel was beyond Mars orbit as they prepared to leave. Tai took one last look at the command center where the war had finally ended. Do you think they'll come back? Sue asked as they strapped into an escape pod, looking at Earth below them, blue and beautiful. Tai felt something she had not felt since before the invasion piece. If they do, she said, they'll find us ready. And this time will be the ones they fear. The pod detached from the doomed mothership, carrying the heroes of humanity back to the world they had saved. Earth was battered, but unbroken its people. 1 year after the Korra invasion began, the global resistance had transformed into something no one could have imagined at the start. What had been small, scattered groups fighting with stolen weapons and desperate courage was now an organized army. With a command structure, bases around the world, and a growing arsenal of adapted alien technology, Tay had been promoted to general, now commanding the Asian Alliance, one of 5 major resistance forces that coordinated their efforts worldwide. Her mountain base had expanded again, now housing over 500 fighters, engineers, scientists, and support staff. The narrow tunnels had been widened into proper halls and chambers with power running water and advanced communications. In the main command center, Tai stood with Jun and other leaders looking at holographic displays showing Korra positions worldwide. The aliens still controlled major cities and had overwhelming firepower, but the balance was shifting day by day. Former military personnel from countries around the world had joined the resistance, bringing training discipline and tactical knowledge. Scientists and engineers who once built smartphones and car engines now worked to understand and adapt Korra technology. The human capacity for learning and innovation was proving to be their greatest weapon. Sue had become one of their most valuable assets. Her small biology lab had grown into a full research facility with 20 scientists working under her direction. Her discovery about Korra vulnerability to Earth bacteria had been a breakthrough, but she hadn't stopped there. General Tay, we need to talk, Sue said, entering the command center. Her face serious but excited, Tay could tell she had made another discovery. Sue never called her general unless it was something important. In a private meeting room, Sue spread diagrams and test results on the table. They have no natural immunity to anything on Earth. She explained, not just bacteria but viruses, fungi even. Pollen, their bodies have never evolved defenses against our ecosystem. Tay leaned forward, studying the complex charts. Their environmental shields are the only thing protecting them, she said. Sue nodded. Exactly, and we've already learned how to disable those shields temporarily. What Sue proposed next was bold, a new type of weapon that would target the Korra environmental protection systems, while simultaneously releasing a cocktail of harmless to humans but devastating to Korra microorganisms. It wasn't deadly right away, but within hours exposed Korra would become too sick to function. We can disable entire bases without destroying infrastructure, without killing humans. Caught in crossfire, Sue explained, and the Korra won't understand what's happening to them until it's too late. She had already tested it on tissue samples and the results were promising. Tay authorized Operation Microbe. Immediately, teams would be sent to Korra facilities worldwide to deploy the new weapon. The scientists worked day and night to produce enough of the biological agent. Nearly 100 resistance fighters were trained in using the special devices that would deliver it. The first target was a Korra command center in what had once been Beijing. The aliens had taken over the entire government district, converting gleaming office buildings into their regional headquarters. Thousands of human prisoners worked there under guard, producing supplies for the Korra occupation forces. Dal, now a resistance captain, would lead the mission. Her team consisted of 30 fighters, all carrying the new biological weapons disguised as ordinary maintenance workers. They would infiltrate the facility, plant the devices, and escape before the effects became noticeable. Tay wanted to go too. She missed field operations, but her role as general kept her at the base instead. She monitored the operation from the command center, listening to encrypted communications, watching drone footage of the target site. Her heart pounding with each update. We are in position, Dal reported, her voice calm. Despite the danger devices planted in environmental control systems, main buildings, secondary buildings, and barracks, she and her team had moved efficiently through the facility using forged identification the Korra had, becoming increasingly reliant on human workers, which made infiltration easier. Now came the hard part. Retreat before the devices activated, before the Korra realized they had been compromised. Tai watched the small dots on her screen representing Dal's team move toward extraction points. 3 teams, 30 people, all needed to get out safely. Extraction complete. Dal finally reported all teams accounted for no casualties. We are returning to base, Tai allowed herself to breathe again. Now they would wait. The results exceeded their wildest expectations. Within 12 hours, the Beijing command center stopped. All communications drone footage showed Korra soldiers collapsing, unable to function their systems, overwhelmed by organisms their bodies had never encountered before. Human prisoners reported that guards simply fell ill, suddenly unable to stand or breathe properly. Most importantly, no humans were harmed. The microorganisms Sue had selected affected only Korra biology. For the first time, the Resistance had found a weapon that gave them a clear advantage. The operation was repeated at Korra bases worldwide, with similar results. In the first wave of attacks, 27 major installations fell. Without a single shot fired, the aliens had no defense against Earth's microscopic life. Suddenly, their superior technology meant nothing in the face of basic biology. The Korra response was immediate and desperate. They withdrew their forces from ground installations, retreating to their ships where they could maintain sterile environments. They abandoned smaller outposts, entirely consolidating their forces in a few heavily protected locations. For the first time since their arrival, the Korra attempted to negotiate with humans. The governor requested a meeting with resistance leaders, including Tai. The meeting was set for neutral ground, a platform constructed in international waters. Be careful, Jun warned as Tai prepared to depart. This could be a trap. His face was lined with worry. They had become close over the past year, sharing the burdens of leadership, finding comfort in each other's strength. Or it could be surrender, Tai replied, checking her weapons one last time. If the Korra want to talk, it means they know they're losing. She did not trust the aliens, but she needed to hear what they had to say. The Korra governor was taller than most of its species, with skin so pale it was almost transparent. Its silver eyes showed no emotion. As it faced the human delegation through translation devices, it addressed them. This conflict is inefficient. The governor stated, we propose a compromise. We will leave your major population centers and restrict our harvesting to isolated regions, only taking what we need. Minimal human casualties. Tai stepped forward, her voice steady. There will be no harvesting, she said. You will leave our planet completely, or we will continue this war until your species learns what extinction feels like. The governor's silver eyes narrowed. You cannot defeat us technologically. This defiance is irrational. That's exactly why you'll lose, Tai replied. You keep expecting rational behavior from a species fighting for its loved ones. The negotiations failed as Tai had expected. The Korra could not comprehend that humans would accept no solution that involved continued alien presence on Earth. They could not understand fighting for principle rather than advantage. But the meeting served another purpose. It showed the entire human resistance that the Korra could be forced to the table. They weren't invincible. They could be beaten. It was a powerful symbol that gave new energy to the fight. Tai's helicopter returned to base. She received amazing news. Resistance forces in Europe had captured 3 more Korra ships. These were not small vessels, but major transport crafts with advanced technology and rich databases. The intelligence teams were already extracting information. Jun met her as she landed, his face glowing with excitement. We found something, he said, that changes everything. He led her quickly to the command center where analysts were projecting images from the captured ship's data. Inside one of the vessels, they found information that no one had expected: the location of the Korra mothership, the massive vessel that coordinated the entire invasion fleet. It remained in high Earth orbit, acting as command center and headquarters for the Korra High Command. If we could destroy it, Jun said, the remaining forces would be cut off, unable to coordinate. This could end the war. He stared at the images of the enormous ship, thinking of her sister Han, of all those who had died in this war, of the possibility that it might actually end. Victory had seemed impossible a year ago. Now it was within reach. On screens throughout the command center, Tai watched live footage of Korra ships rising from Earth-breaking orbit to join protective formations around their mothership. The aliens were retreating, consolidating their forces, pulling back from the planet they had failed to conquer. We need a plan, Tai said, her mind already racing. How do we reach a ship in orbit? Her voice was steady. but her heart pounded with excitement and determination. This was what they had fought for, what Han and countless others had died for, the chance to drive the invaders from Earth forever. Sue joined them, her eyes bright with possibility. "I think I know a way," she said.